maybe that experience there when I hit the door, as when I got up, and the first thing I thought was, I don't want anything to happen to me like that ever again. I was so scared by it that I just thought, No, just no. Everything in my being was just no, thank you. I can do without that. And then, as I was sitting there, sort of thinking about it again, just before speaking to you, I was thinking I would literally give anything to have something like that happen again. So it's I've come completely kind of full circle on it. I would love nothing more than to have that happen again, just to reaffirm the fact that it happened at all. Um, so I find that kind of odd that I would love that to happen again. It's the one thing that I have thought about for 20 odd years. I would just love for that to happen again. But it's yeah, so maybe I thought that at the time because maybe I knew that in time you're going to want this to happen to you again. So you're going to be eating those words, and I certainly have.
Yes, and many children see them too. About 75% of the world's children today are being born with etheric vision. And when your children talk with people and have daydream playmates, the chances are they are actually speaking to some of these people. Because these angels or angelic forces or nature spirits, as they're often called, will often make themselves seen.
And all of a sudden I hear him go, whoa, or, something like that. So I look up. And as I look up, I see this thing.
And I said, I've never seen a butterfly like you before.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
As soon as I spoke to it, it turns around and makes eye contact with me. And then it stands upright.
And it was at that moment that I saw it was like an orange light appear above this row of trees. And from this sort of orange light, this thing appeared. Its wings were actually like sycamore leaf shaped.
And I started talking to them. I'm like, hi, are y'all the dwarves? And I would hear whispers that would say, hi, yeah, you want to play? And it wasn't just my imagination. And I had told them, I'm like, my dwarves, they like beer, And my dad's like, yeah, sure, your dwarves like beer. And they were holding a conversation, and his beer slid upwards instead of downwards, how the house was tilted. And him and my brothers jumped up.
So I stopped calling out Adam, and I'm just kind of, my mind draws a blank, and I stop behind that tree stump. I'm pretty close to it now because I took a few steps forward, and I see this thing.
Okay. No, I think I've listened to a lot of your shows, so I kind of know how it goes. Yeah.
Cool. Well, have you listened to, just out of curiosity, the episode with Emma and her tarot cards?
Yes, I have.
Okay, that one's pretty wild because during the episode creation process, it would appear that a fae moves her tarot cards multiple times, including switching them in front of her very eyes.
Yes, I recall hearing her talking about that.
And I mean, I've confirmed that with her offline a number of times that that is exactly what occurred. She had 3 cards out, pulled on a pillow in front of her while she was talking with me, and looked down to see that they were different.
Yes, yeah.
Astonishing to say the least. And then I recently spoke with Brett. Have you listened to the most recent 2? Just out of curiosity.
No, I haven't listened to that one
Okay,
yet.
I will not spoil that for you, but
Okay.
additional unbelievable stuff happens on the level of Emma's cards.
Right, okay.
So you're in for a treat there. Now, I only mention that just as we're still doing pre-combo here because there was a weird, somewhat weird synergy that occurred with you reaching out to me.
Oh, okay.
Brett is a macabre fairy artist, and she's kind of my friend at this point. And so, like, she was telling me this story about an orb entering her forehead, and she was,
Oh, wow.
I know, and she was drawing a drawing of it, and she sent it to me. She's like, "Hey, I'm starting this new drawing. It's about the story I told you in her episode." And then I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And then I went to my email, and that's precisely when I received the email from you about an orb entering your forehead. And
Oh
so,
my God.
yeah, and then unbeknownst to Brett, because I didn't tell her when I was talking to you, I just mentioned, "Hey, this woman sent me this orb thing." She sent me just last night, she's like, "Hey, I finished it." And she sent me the picture of it finished, and it's on the eve of me coming to talk to you. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Also, have you listened to the first episode with Ron, the guy who's kind of hard to understand?
Yes, I don't recall it exactly now.
He's like the old guy who was meditating, and then orbs filled his
Oh,
room.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I do, yeah.
He saw cartoons on the walls and stuff like that.
Oh, right, yeah, I do remember.
Of all things, I recently had a woman from Australia frantically messaging me saying, "Holy shit, holy shit, holy shit. I just listened to your podcast. I've never, ever in my entire life heard another person talk about the cartoons on the walls. They do it for me all the time."
Oh, wow.
I know. And so what are the the deeper I go into the show construction process, it's a matter of numbers on the one hand, where it's just like enough synergistic experiences may happen if you're pulling enough cards. I guess you're eventually going to find ones that match or something like that, to kind of use a card analogy. But more so to the point, I just think that it's really interesting to talk with you in the context of the greater picture, which is unfolding around the show. And so there's a little bit of offline teasers for you about how excited I am to talk to you today. So there's some orb stuff.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, without further ado, and out of respect for your time, let me bring you on the show, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, tonight to Fascinating Fae. Tonight, we're traveling to London in the United Kingdom to talk with Carrie. Carrie, how are things in London this evening?
Oh, they're good. They're good. Bit gloomy, as usual. It's the UK, but yeah, it's good.
Well, a little bit of that UK sunshine never hurt the Brits. It's how you got your stiff upper lip.
Yeah.
And as a resident of the British Columbia coast, it's a rainforest here, and I know all about that kind of gloomy weather. Thankfully, today it broke free and there's some sun. So,
Yeah.
and I'll make my favorite joke, which is every podcast ever starts talking about the weather. So,
Of course, of course.
it's the grease that naturally oozes into conversation smoothing. You know what I mean? It's like, let's just throw
Yeah.
some weather in there and get the thing started off on a good flow. But jokes aside, and it's truly worth talking about the weather because among the other magical elements of Earth, weather is pretty cool to live and experience. I'm just going to do my standard Fascinating Fae introduction for the benefit of all. So here at Fascinating Fae, Carrie, we do not try to convince anyone of anything. That's pretty much rule number one. The reason for that is because the Fae and other difficult to describe experiences with interdimensionals or entities or other things, it can be very difficult to describe in the words that we are left with as human beings. So, not trying to convince anyone of anything is mostly about just setting comfort for the guest. It's also a fact of the matter that, it's yet to be scientifically provable. However, we get closer and closer in this fascinating Fae narrative all the time. All the same, there's no pressure here about like, I need someone to really believe what I'm saying. I believe you. That's why you're here on the show. And the audience, by that measure as well, definitely believes people when they listen as well. So it's all good. It's a safe place. The second thing I like to tell people is that I saw a fairy in 2019. Just briefly, I did see like a bright, illuminated fairy come through glass and pause in front of my face. And the more I listen back to myself talking about it, I'm starting to sound casual about it. So I just wanted for a second to just remind everybody, it blew my fucking dome, which is why I needed to start this show. The show has now blown my dome itself. And so the whole thing is just a weird experience. Again, I say that just because when I try to describe any and all of it and my first experience, Carrie, I sound kind of incredible. I sound kind of out there. I sound kind of hard to contextualize. It's one of the victimizations that the Fae do to you, is they make you sound a little bit difficult to understand if you're not initiated into this subject material. So for that reason, I say in advance to all of my guests, I think it's brave to come on the show. And I do appreciate the bravery, the honesty, and the time that all of my guests give. And so tonight, in advance, I want to extend that thanks to you, just like all my other guests. I guess finally, just other than those things, which, I try to say the same stuff as fresh as I possibly can at the start of each episode. The last thing is this, what we like to do here at Fascinating Fae, Carrie, is just let the guest walk us into their experience with a lot of context. We like to know a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what was going on that day or that month or that period of time. And then, I'll only really ask questions when you naturally are done your storytelling. So if you'd be so kind, walk us into this story about this blue orb.
Okay. Yes, it's a long, long time ago. I was probably 19, 20 years old at the time. I was going out a lot, partying a lot. I was really into kind of house music and raving and all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm living at home, and we're still kind of in the realms of just outside of London. And I'm sitting in my bedroom. It's just a random afternoon. There's nothing special going on. But I was really into making music. I was a singer for many years. And my friend had given me this keyboard, which I was just using to tinker around on, really. I wasn't really doing much. But I was just sitting there, and it's a lovely sunny day. It's quite cold, I remember, because I had one of those kind of stand-up heaters in my bedroom just to warm up the air, because I don't think we had central heating at the time. So yeah, I'm kind of sitting there. I've got this keyboard balanced on a stool in front of me, and I was just playing little songs on there. And something obviously made me look up with a real kind of start. And I just looked up, and in front of me, hovering, was this kind of orb. I mean, looking back, that's the only way I can describe it. It was about the size of a large football. And the shape of it wasn't distinctive. It didn't have outer edges that were really distinctive, but I could tell it was still kind of circular in shape. But the inside of this orb had this kind of grid-like pattern, which I thought was kind of, I don't know why I thought it was odd, because the whole thing was kind of odd. But it had this grid pattern, and in the pattern was blue and white kind of squares, which to this day I still don't kind of understand. I don't understand much about this experience at all. But as I'm looking at it, and this all happens in a matter of kind of seconds, but it kind of rushes at me, and it's difficult to describe the feeling of it, because it was kind of warm. This feeling, as it rushing towards me, I can feel the warmth coming off it, and it's an intense kind of heat coming off it. It's not hot, it doesn't burn or anything like that, but it rushes towards my face. And I'm so shocked that I think the keyboard kind of flies over as I'm kind of jumping up, trying to almost defend myself from it, because I'm thinking, what is this thing rushing at me like this? So I think there's a pillow kind of, I'm obviously sitting on a bed, so there's a pillow just there. And I think I try and pull the pillow up to kind of defend myself from this thing. But it's too late. It touches my face and I can feel it. And then it seems to sort of just go into my face. So it doesn't sort of go back or anything. It just goes straight in. And I remember this feeling going straight through my skin, and it was just such an intense warmth. I don't know, it was sort of frightening, but kind of extraordinary at the same time. I think then I just kind of leapt up. Keyboard has gone, stool's gone over, and I must have yelped really loudly. And it was quite a small bedroom that I had. And as I leapt up, my back just kind of hit the door of the bedroom with a thud. And I remember thinking, it was quite an odd thought as well. I'm thinking, I don't want anything like that to ever happen to me again. I was so scared. And my heart was just pounding out of my chest. I don't know how long it took me to calm down. I can't remember much of what happened for the rest of that day, really. I just remember that instant. I've remembered it. I'm now 52, so I've remembered it for a really long time ever since. And I should really say as well that this experience that I had with this orb is in kind of two parts. So that happened. I obviously do calm down. I get on with my day. I don't know what else I'm doing, but that's it. That's the end of that. But then 3 days later, I had come in, we'd been out all night. This is probably around 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning. And again, I'm just sitting in my room. I think I've got a cup of tea. I'm just kind of chilling out. And as I'm sitting there, again, I've got my heater just sitting in front of me. It's freezing cold. It must have been, I don't know, maybe January time. And I'm sitting there and I'm sitting on the bed and I can feel the bed kind of moving behind me. Almost that feeling you get when somebody is stepping on something soft behind you. And it felt like that. It felt like sort of somebody's footsteps, but dipping the bed. And in my room, I had this really quite large dressing table, quite an old-fashioned one. Had a huge kind of horizontal mirror going across. And I remember just looking up and I saw what I can only describe as, at the time I thought, oh my God, it's Peter Pan's shadow. It was a shadow figure. I could see straight through it, but it was still the only thing that was similar to the orb experience, and this was literally 3 days later, was again this intense heat coming off it. And it had arms and legs and a head, and it was seemed to be sort of interacting with me in some way, and I can't even describe how that was. But I remember looking at it in the mirror and just thinking, oh my God, what on earth is that? It literally looked like Peter Pan's shadow. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, the old-fashioned kind of movie where he's jumping around the room in Wendy's bedroom, but that's what it was like. I was thinking, what on earth is that? And I'm looking in the mirror thinking, I should be scared right now. Why aren't I scared? I should be absolutely petrified, but I wasn't. There was no fear whatsoever. And I'm looking at this thing and it's moving around and I can feel this heat coming from it. And I don't know how long I kind of looked at this being, this thing. But I must have been sitting there for quite a while, just staring at it. And it started to do this sort of movement above my head. And the only way I can describe it, it was like its arm came over my head and went 3 times in a circle over my head. And the sound it made was so loud. It was like this whooshing sound. Whoosh. But it was so loud that literally the hair on my head was standing up because there was this kind of magnetic sort of force coming from it. And I was thinking, what on earth is it doing? And it did this movement 3 times. And then it brought its hand kind of down in a straight line just above my head. I thought, oh my God, it's kind of splitting me in two. It was really, really odd. I was thinking, what on earth is that? And I remember sort of thinking, I should get up and I should get up. And why can't I get up? And what is happening? But I think I eventually found my kind of limbs again. I thought, if I turn around, is this thing going to have completely disappeared? Is this something I can only see in the mirror behind, in front of me? Or is it just going to vanish? And I remember getting up. And again, I don't know how much time has elapsed from me sitting there and looking at it to me actually getting up. But I get up and I remember looking directly at this thing. I turned around, looked at it. It was still there. And I remember looking at it and going, who are you? And I just said that in my head. I didn't even say it out loud. I said it in my head, who are you? And as loud as anything, there was a voice in my head and it said, I'm you. I thought, I'm you? And then I did the strangest thing, which I have no explanation for whatsoever. But I thought, you know what? I really need to make a cup of tea. And I simply left the room. I went downstairs and I made a cup of tea. I went back and this being is still there. It's still standing on my bed. I feel like it's communicating with me. I can't remember what exactly is being said, but it's saying something in my head. I mean, looking back now, I'm thinking that tea was some kind of offering of some kind or some kind of, I don't know. I'm just guessing. The more and more I've listened to various episodes of yours, I've listened to Claire, and I've tried to work out from what other people's experiences are why I was reacting in the way that I was. But I think it was possibly some kind of offering that I went to get that cup of tea, because it's such an odd thing to do while something sort of weird and miraculous is going on in your bedroom and you just go off downstairs to make tea. It's completely random. But anyway, I carried on interacting with this thing. And again, the time has kind of vanished from my brain. I don't know when it disappeared. I can't remember the rest of that day. I don't know what else happened. But that was kind of the end of that experience, really. But I think it stayed there for quite a long time. I think it was a good sort of, a good maybe hour. I wish I'd looked at the clock or tried to get some semblance of what sort of time frame was was going on, but I don't think I did. And I don't even think my mind was even operating in the way that it normally would. You know, I think when you're having a kind of really unusual experience like that, I think your brain just kind of goes into a different mode. I don't know. But yeah, that was kind of it. But it felt very like it was trying to communicate something to me. And it's only many years later when I kind of felt that those two, I always understood that those two things were linked. The orb and this being were linked, but I didn't know how. And I still don't quite understand why it said, I'm you. And then I thought maybe maybe this is my soul. Maybe this soul has somehow decided to come out of my body and say hello or something. I have no idea. And I suppose it's certainly and I don't think I told nearly anyone. I told one friend about it. And she had interestingly seen fairies at a very, very young age. So she's the only person I kind of trusted with the information because I knew it just sounded completely crazy. This didn't happen to people, and it didn't happen in your bedroom when you when you were just at home. Um, so yeah, that's kind of it. That's kind of the experience, and I suppose ever since I've been trying desperately to figure it out. And it's only recently, as I've started to listen to a lot of Fae kind of podcasts, um, that I've managed to kind of piece some of it together. But I don't know whether I'm telling the story to get answers or whether I'm just telling it because it's there to tell. But yeah, that's kind of it, Jim.
Carrie, well, first of all, thank you for that incredible storytelling. First things first.
Okay.
There's many things as I was listening to you intently that I now would like to ask questions about and comment on, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. First things first, so let's just run down the list. We've got the, I guess, queen of the house, Jo Hickey Hall, in the Modern Fairy Science podcast.
Yes.
She's been at it a while too, and she's, clocking like 12K subscribers on YouTube. That's decent, but when you think about it objectively, why is the one woman who basically trailblazed the idea of fairies are still around, let's talk to people that have seen them, only has 12,000 subscribers? Like, when you think about that.
Yeah.
Claire with the Fairy Whispering podcast, excellent work. Claire is currently re-releasing most of her catalog, and her creativity is totally blossoming around that project with, the new audio skills that she's possessed. And she's just got like a touch that, I don't know, Jo Hickey Hall doesn't have her touch. I don't have her touch. Claire's her own animal, she's got the Claire kind of like way, which is, whenever I'm done listening to Claire, I feel like I've meditated for whatever reason. She kind of takes you.
She's very very gentle. Yeah.
Yeah, she takes you there. She takes you there in a very gentle way. And then there's me, the, one guy in North America, in all of North America doing this. There's too few of us in the sense of like the phenomena is real and basically seems to be present across all countries and all ages, all sexes, all lived experiences, more or less. You can be gay, straight, black, tall, purple, albino, living in Africa, and you can still see a fairy. It doesn't really matter. So there's that. Who else is on that list that I'm missing? Is there anyone you've been checking out that I should know about for fairy podcasts?
No, I mean, to me that's the three.
That's
there are
the
three
house.
of you, and I've listened to them all.
You know what? Same. So that's cool. Well, yeah. Sometimes, like, I say, I'm the only man hosting a fairy podcast in the world, and I wonder if that's accurate. And then I look and I look and I look, and I'm like, no, fuck, it's accurate.
I think you are. Yeah.
Pretty much fucking me. Like, how did that happen? Why is that a thing? Like, why is that how it is? Like, that doesn't really seem right, because You have every Disney fairy ever. That's 100 years of fairies. You've got Lord of the Rings. You've got Harry Potter. You've got Narnia. You've got Avatar. I mean, the world is like thick as thieves with fairy and fae representations.
Yes, yeah.
And yet, there seems to be this gap of like, yeah, but it's all just like fantasy, right? like it's so weird. It's the weirdest phenomena. Like, if I may humbly, okay, yes, aliens make it into pop culture. They're all over the place, for sure they are. But on the balance of like how many like true like aliens coming to Earth to like do weird stuff to people movies there are, versus how many pure like fantasy realm movies there are, you know, the Lord of the Rings series, all that stuff that I just referenced.
Yeah.
It would appear there is an utter fascination with fantasy and the fae that is the biggest kind of like the biggest dream that the populace seems to share across all cultures is not of us all going to space and having fights with aliens. The biggest dream, it would appear, is that we actually live in a magical world. And so
Yes, yeah.
that's, if I just look objectively at like what I see in pop culture, you know, even all these superhero movies are in effect like kind of blending the line between sci-fi and fantasy, but they're rooted in the idea of like the superpowers that are around us, the supernatural things around us.
Yes, yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
So not to get too far away from your story, but it's worth mentioning at this juncture that like there's too few people hosting podcasts about real fairy encounters, given the fact that the phenomena is real. I still keep coming back to that being the weirdest niche to have stumbled upon and to also be genuinely a part of. Like, it's just, yeah. Like, I guess what I'm saying is I saw my fairy. That could have happened. And then I could have been like, I should start a podcast about it, and found that there's already 450 well-established podcasts about people, you know.
Yeah.
Because that's true of Sasquatch.
Very true, Sasquatch. Yeah, I mean, I listen to one regularly.
Who do you listen to? I'm a big fan of Sasquatch Chronicles. That's my go-to.
I love Sasquatch Chronicles.
Yeah.
That's the one I really am a big fan of, yeah.
If I may, I have tried my humblest to model my program and interview style around Wes Germer, because I just really like the way that the guy does it. And
yeah.
so there's that. So, and actually, I have also seen a Sasquatch briefly in a roadside crossing, which I talk about.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Well, it came 3.5 years after I saw my fairy, but I did see a Sasquatch too. And you know how on Sasquatch Chronicles, you always hear people say that they just like glide and they move so fast.
Yeah.
Well, when I saw my Sasquatch jump across the road, it moved so fast. But the thing is, I saw a fairy in 2019, and I keep talking about how fucking smooth and fast that thing was.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm able to, you know, like mildly, not in any confidence, say, I kind of think Sasquatch is a fae. Point being, though, there's at least 100 very well-established podcasts on Sasquatch. Wes Germer has up-and-comers nipping at his tail every day of the week, basically, right?
Yeah.
But yet, over here at Fascinating Fae, again, I'm trying my best to like keep on top of where else this subject matter is getting tackled, so that I, you know, just am like, if I'm hosting my own show on it, I should know who else is doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're in consensus here tonight, Carrie. It's pretty much the three of us, Joe Hickey Hall, Claire, and myself. And that doesn't make any sense, because millions and millions of people go see Disney movies about fairies, which means they're fascinated in them and they love the idea. And so when, not if, but when people start to connect to these podcasts or other real efforts on establishing like the truth of the fae, for lack of a better word, it will be very interesting to see the heights at which these projects actually reach, because it's right now just cracking ground. I can feel it. So,
Yes, yeah.
and you know, this is me speaking from my perspective, having done a lot of advocacy around cannabis. Cannabis was getting smoked, grown, sold, shared in Canada for, you know, as long as Canada was Canada. But right around the time I was like, like I'm kind of pulling off opening a storefront that's doing a fully illegal thing and I'm not getting arrested for it. It was very, very tense, but I was pulling it off. That's when you know that like the crack is opening up. 7 years later, cannabis was legalized and I had a huge head start on pretty much that race because I had been in there when it was still dicey and difficult to be there. I feel a parallel to this fairy stuff in that sense. I just have an innate knowing in my bones that this is going to pop. So for everyone listening, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but generally speaking, based on my track record,
Oh, definitely. I mean, I would definitely agree with that. I think that all of you are kind of trailblazing. That I felt that straight away. As soon as I started to listen to it, I thought, finally, somebody's doing this. Somebody's talking about it, and it's so useful and so inclusive to feel like, oh my God, I can actually say something about this now. So yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's great.
well, enough like, low key chucking myself into a list of very well established ladies who I'm really trying to copy at the end of the day. But at the very least, the space now has a male host and a couple of female hosts, so there's some balance in the way that it sounds anyway. So, but if you listen, it's a chorus. We're all saying the same stuff. That's the key takeaway. And so for all those listening who are tired of me, and I'm sure there's plenty of them, you can get deeper into the same subject matter along more or less the same format lines with Claire's show, the Fairy Whispering Podcast. Just Google that and you'll find it. Or Joe Hickey Hall's show, the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast. And then there's also some like other shows worth mentioning, like Sasquatch Chronicles, where you can tell Wes Germer is in his own gentle way saying, well, there are the lights. They do kind of disappear sometimes. He won't come out and say he thinks they're fairies because he has to, like, his puppet strings are held by the 70,000 people that subscribe to his show and pay him $12 a month, And most of those guys are hunters and rednecks who want to fucking find a Sasquatch and drag it in.
Exactly, yeah.
So Wes walks that line of appeasing his subscriber base, but also saying what he really thinks, which is there's more going on with Sasquatch than it's just a thing that lives in the woods that's yet to be found. So that's a worthy mention because although it's not quote unquote a fairy podcast, like I said, I model myself on Wes. He's my hero for podcasting. And I do think he low-key is trying to hint to everybody that he thinks Sasquatches are fairies.
Yeah.
Also, Strange Familiars with Timothy Renner. Very good podcast that touches around the fairy topic pretty regularly in their episode content.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah. Strange Familiars has 500 episodes. It's made in the same kind of Midwest environment as like Brett Manning. So it's kind of like Midwesty, landlocked, the United States has got like a 200-year-old history. So it's all about that, mostly ghosty kind of.
Yeah, okay.
But they have interviewed the odd person who like comes on with a story that doesn't fit into other cryptid or paranormal podcasts. And so if you go digging around the catalog of Strange Familiars, you're going to find a few fairy stories for sure.
Okay.
One other one just to mention, and this is all just for the benefit of you and the audience really, and you'll get to listen back to this later, so don't worry about making a list tonight, Carrie. UFO Chronicles with Nick Hunter is also very good. And, he was a person who experienced like sleep paralysis a lot, and then also was continuously seeing craft and lights in the sky in association with this in the days preceding and following these sleep paralysis events. And so he started UFO Chronicles to basically seek out other stories. Over time, I think what happened is like he tapped out pretty quick on authentic UFO encounter stories because there are really truly not that many really authentic ones, I don't think. And so he branched out into more like, well, just whatever it was you saw, just talk to me, you know? So
Right.
UFO Chronicles covers more than just UFOs these days. And there's a couple in there that are definitely fairy stories. I actually have a future plan to come on that program. I'm a big fan of Nick's, so he's very soft-spoken, very gentle with the guest as well. Yeah, and then, you know, Tony Merkel with the confessionals, if you can handle him, is, you know,
Right.
he's a bit much for me. So he just had ADHD, kind of eats Pop-Tarts and drinks Gatorade, so he's all like, you
Okay.
know. But that's my list. So myself, Joe Hickey Hall, Claire, Sasquatch Chronicles, Strange Familiars, the Confessionals podcast, and UFO Chronicles start to give you a somewhat clear picture of this phenomena. Anyway,
Yeah.
back to you, my guest, the most important part of tonight's episode. Okay, I want to jump right into this whole I'm you thing.
Yes.
So you haven't heard other episodes that I haven't published, nor has anyone else. But I've published 43 at this point, and I've recorded 55 or so. And this would be like number 56. I'm starting to get to the point with this Faye thing where I have actually asked a number of guests prior to you saying this to me at all. We've never talked about this before tonight at all. I don't know that you were going to say this to me. I have said to at least 3 or 4 of my guests, are these things us?
Oh, right. Okay.
And I'll tell you why I think I'm starting to think that. Because I've gone full circle from this fairy came into my wheelhouse and it was its own thing, which is true. And then Danielle channeled it, which made me learn its name, and it's truly has a color, and it's really a female, and it's got wings. I was all right about everything I say I saw because Danielle channeled it, and then Danielle's channeling of it then, you know, caused the power to go bonkers and a fairy fight for my soul to erupt in my house. But I'm digressing. My point is that, like, at first I was like, okay, that's a real thing. Then I was like, it's not only a real thing, it's a real individual. Then I was like, yes, see, it is a real individual. But then, as much as that seems to settle it for me, okay, fairies are real, they are themselves, like Bob and Sally. It's not just like a spirit of nature thing, like it's a real solo entity, like you are and like I am. And then that more or less settles it. But then I'm just like, how do they know so much about us? How do they, like, I
Yeah.
keep saying fairies know your heart, fairies know your heart. I'm like a broken record. How do they know that Becky B needs that little nudge to trust her intuition around her artwork? How does Grimble Grumble know to drop off a raccoon skull for Brett on top of the 2 cat skulls each of those girls got, which are like things that they're gonna love? And like, it's just so many intimate details that blend the concept of space, time, intent. Like, they know your heart, meaning like they really know, not just like, oh, that person's got a good heart. Like, no, they know Brett's got a good heart and she likes skulls. And they know Brett is sitting on a stump right now talking to me, and that we're going to trip everyone the fuck out by giving her a skull, not the least of which is her, all of which is part of a narrative. Like Emma's cards. Okay, so let's break that down for a second.
Yeah.
Is it, this is just all about you saying that it's you, which I find utterly fucking fascinating, and I'm so glad that you've told me this detail, because Emma uses those cards every day. She has
Yeah.
for a long time. When Emma's using those cards every day, she's like carrying her own sort of Emma-ness, if that's a word, into the use of the cards. Her own kind of like, yeah, I'm Emma, I believe in this stuff. I'm holding my own belief in my heart around this stuff as I use these cards, and I trust that my pulls are both my pulling and the cards speaking to me about fate. This is all prior to talking to me. This is just Emma being Emma, the way she is. She didn't need me or anyone else to prove to her that those tarot cards are fucking magic and she's magic and they can be touched by the Fae. But it happened. And it would be the exact thing that would make Emma's heart the most warm, to realize like my beloved tarot cards my fairy oracle deck, the thing I use every day, is what they would touch. They didn't knock over a plant while we were talking. They didn't, they get right into the deepest intimacy of the moment, the person, it's so crazy. And that's why I'm like, how is that an external observer? They're us. And I think that where I go with it is like if you contemplate the trajectory in this show, I keep saying it's not me, but then what if it is me? Like, what if all the Fae, like, it's very, very, very difficult for me to give voice to what I'm trying to say, but I'm going to keep trying because you've really struck this chord with me by talking about this shadow figure answering you when you asked, who are you? And it said, I'm you. So, like, when I saw Petunia, I was in the super high water moment in my life. I had basically, in that moment that I was with Mrs. X, sitting with her on my lap, was enjoying the fruits of so many labors, so many things. And yes, Petunia is real. Yes, she's her own individual. All that's been firmly demonstrated. But the fact that we can't see these things or touch them or really I did see her, so it's, I guess let me just back up. I think to myself, we power them. Like there's this, I'm going to really sound hard to understand here. There's this inseparability between what a Fae is and what we are. And there's an element of ourselves that is fueling or powering or is the fuel cell or energy source that enables the Fae to more or less exist. But that's not just exclusive to us. The Fae are energy beings. It would be very fucking clear at this point that that's an accurate description.
Yeah.
And when I talked to Ron in my first episode, I was like, how do they fucking sustain? Like, how do they exist? And he basically said that like if you can think about like when you eat a piece of food, it has some caloric energy in it. And then that caloric energy like fuels you and now you get to go do stuff. A Fae is eating and living off of the particular energy that Fae is the embodiment of, in effect.
Right, okay, yeah.
So like Petunia is clearly full of love, right? And when this show started and like when you look at like the effect it's having on like Hannah and others, like these guests of mine who are like really feeling the impact of this show deeply and emotionally, that's her. It's not me so much as I feel like that's Petunia. But going back to this concept that like Petunia doesn't show up until I'm providing that battery supply.
Yeah, you're in the right kind of state.
Correct. So in effect, like they are us. And like, is she an element of my personality? No, because like Danielle can channel her and she has form. But would she exist at all in anyone's minds, or if I hadn't seen her? And would I have seen her if I hadn't been in that moment? It's so hard to explain what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, because, and the way that I've kind of tried to absorb my experience is by, it kind of reminded me of something quite silly. I don't know how old you are, but this probably might be before your time. But I remember as when I was quite young, I used to watch I used to watch Star Trek, and Star Trek had this really interesting character on it. She was a Trill, and a Trill had a symbiont. The symbiont wasn't a part of her, but part of um, almost like a kind of like we would think of reincarnation. So this symbiont would be placed inside her body, and it would be the reincarnation of a past person, another Trill being. So she would take on this symbiont. And I think from what you're saying, that although the Fae might be separate and different to you, they are also living through a particular kind of energy that you have. I know certainly, I mean, I don't want to get biblical, but I know certainly in the Bible there are passages which talk about that there are parts of God within you as a person. And we call that the soul, and that soul can move around independently. It's connected to all other living beings. So I don't know whether I don't have no idea whether that's my soul or not, but I'm certainly, from the kind of movement it did above my head and the way that it behaved, I'm kind of thinking, was it trying to say, you are a part of this orb creature. You are half of whatever this orb is, and the other half is human. Are you just parts of this same being? And perhaps without us realizing it in our sort of 2D, 3D world, we don't make the connection. But perhaps this is exactly what you're talking about, that people are starting to make that connection, to realize that, are we actually a part of who they are and they're a part of us?
It's so I love everything you're saying, and we're getting close. I can feel we're getting close to giving it the right words. It's like you bring Brett and I together, you get a mysteriously appearing raccoon skull. You bring Emma and I together, you get cards that change in front of your very eyes and go back into the deck on their own. You bring William and I together, you get a charger moving out of his pocket across space and time back into the wall in his house. So what it says is a few things. It's like, reality is not real. It's a representation. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two is that therefore, not, let me go back a quick second. I'll make the point again a little bit better. So you bring Brett and I together, you get a skull, because Brett and her books are like, they're true, basically. So the confirmation is like, yes, we're here. And the more that like the belief ramps up as a result of this podcast series, the more the presence of the Fae becomes present. They are us. It's not just like, they are, in that moment, that thing is you for sure, but they are also a collective you. They're a collective us.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like a domino effect. Like Brett listens to Emma's episode. She's like, whoa, that was mind blowing. And then her mind is now expanded to allow for a reality in which cards can change in front of your very eyes. And then what happens next is that a skull materializes in front of her very eyes.
Yeah.
I made a mistake calling this show Fascinating Fae, because the fascination aspect of it is the secret sauce. If you become truly fascinated by it, it starts to happen. And the show is a good living example of that. That is also part of the We Are You.
Yeah, and also, and I knew even when I was looking at this thing, and literally the first thing that popped into my head was, oh, it's just like Peter Pan. And that's kind of reminiscent of the story of Peter Pan as well. What you've just kind of said about it being, I don't know, like a version of yourself.
And then you can also go a little deeper into this like experience with Becky, illustrating how Muse functions. Why did I make a gnome? Why did it have to be a gnome? You sit there thinking, I'm about to do something, I'm making this choice. Are you? or is a part of you Grimble Grumble at that moment?
Yeah.
But then what does that suggest? Is Grimble Grumble Becky? No. But how is he in her head without her knowing it? Because is he her? Are they us? Is it a combo? Because if you really back out and you go like, I'm the one planning on talking to Becky. I'm the one planning on commissioning Becky a piece for the giveaway. She has no idea that I'm planning on doing that. I've never told her that. But Grimble Grumble knows, and he knows to then get her to make one. So he's both me and her. If you give it voice in that particular I am you, right?
Yeah.
I want to commission something from Becky. Becky, on her own accord, is fascinated with Fascinating Faye because it strokes that itch she's got of like, is this real? And we both get our answer. You bring us together, that you get Grimble Grumble's grave. I see it without being able to really say it. I see it all the time. I'm like, this is the weirdest part of them. I keep thinking, oh, the weirdest part's their space-time. Everyone who's listening, you'll catch by now, I've evolved past that to like, are they us? And I'm just gobsmacked, to steal a word from Jem again, my fellow Brit, that you said that thing answered, I am you. That's honestly maybe one of the most important things anyone said to me in this podcast series, because there's something about these guys that is too intimate. That's the part that trips me out.
Yeah. And that was the part that freaked me out as well. When at the time I just kind of thought, okay. But that kind of freaked me out as well. I thought, what does that? It's absolutely telling me something. I mean, yeah, it's telling me a fact that I am you. So yeah, it's kind of, and I suppose again with the Peter Pan kind of analogy, I suppose even in the story, I'm sure it says something about, Peter Pan can only exist. You can only fly if you believe in Peter Pan. So, things can only happen once you've started to go towards that kind of journey. If you believe it, then it can happen. If you don't, it's never happening. And I think there is an element to the Fae that is absolutely, there needs to be a belief before you can even begin.
I love this conversation so much, and I'm going to ask you, I have a fully unforgotten catalog of questions about your experiences that I'm going to ask, but this part is the most important part to start on.
Okay.
I'm down with all of this because I keep saying it's like the game has 10 pieces. The Fae will put 9 pieces in the box for you. But if you have to play with a full 10 pieces, you have to put that last piece in the box, which is your belief.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the game is on. And they like I started off like, these are real things and they're hiding in the forest. And now I'm like, oh, they're an energetic representation of the interconnectivity of us. And they have personalities at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's yes and yes and yes to all of those questions. Are they themselves? Yes. Do they have their own names? Yes. Are they us? Yes. But then if you go back to the lived experiences on display in the show, just the show itself, the skulls, the cards, the chargers, the gnomes being made without, that being a normal thing. And you look at it just as a subset of one Fae, Grimble Grumble. And you look at him, okay, we know this guy. We know his name. We know where he comes from. He came out of Jem's garden. We know most of his calling cards. He turfs audio. What is he like? What does he do? Who has truly been part of his trajectory in this show? And you look at it all and you're like, it's super trippy people who are already 2/3 of the way there on their belief spectrum, who are pulling the crazy shit out of the hat, so to speak, on episodes. And Grimble Grumble can't make it happen in episodes that are not supported by individuals who also are that touched person. It's obvious when you deconstruct it that yes, they are kind of empowered, powered up, fueled by. It's like a video game. It's like battery point bars for the life meter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They get beep 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 beep, and they get stronger the more they're talked about, the more they're believed in, the more they're experienced. And then it's a self-fulfilling loop. That what that suggests is that if we as a collective focused on things, they would become very, very real.
Yeah, it's quite a powerful thought.
Yes, that limit's not just a gnome gaining flexing power. What if we were all focusing on world peace? What if we were all focusing on, whatever the thing may be, world peace being too general, but you get the idea. What if we really got into like, we're going to focus on a particular ecosystem in distress, all of us? What would that in fact do if in fact reality is just a representation? And so the Fae lesson is one of reaching within the personal power of ourselves and then empowering it into others, then to collectively harness it, to then basically break down the veil, I think is the game. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Well, and then if you think, where is the veil lives in us.
Yeah, we are the thing that is we're the invisible line, I guess. We're the force that's an immovable force. We're the ones that don't move. Yeah.
If you like gave me a gymnasium full of 4 to 6 year olds and a gymnasium full of 45 to 50 year olds, and you put a meter above those two gymnasiums and you tracked Fae activity, which one do you think is going to have Fae around? It's going to be the kids.
Definitely going to be the kids, isn't it?
Because they're all innocent and playful and they don't know any better and they still believe and they just are experiencing what is and they're figuring things out. That honestly is like, you can hear it in the voice of Brett, of William, of Jem, of Becky, that curiosity, that kind of, especially in Emma, that like gentle.
Yeah.
Katie, who definitely manifested Fae at my house, she says there's a difference between being childish and childlike. And that you want to harness childlikeness, you want to lean into being childlike. I spoke to this guest recently from Portugal, Carolina, and she says this beautiful thing where she says when she connects with the Fae, the way that she does it is she allows herself to be extremely vulnerable.
Right, yeah.
She just lets herself be very, very, very vulnerable and lets herself be like a kid and very vulnerable to them and like extremely gentle and vulnerable with them, and that's how she does it. I think that like there's certain Fae calling cards because they're kind of archetypal in a sense. Some are good, some are tricky, some are bad, some are, make you sick, some make you well. I do think there's kind of a weird interplay of interdimensional things that are not just one, slice out of one particular book. Like it's truly everything from ogres under the bridge to multicolored orbs that, honestly have sentience and their own type of way of being fueled by the environment, ourselves, each other. It's so, I call it soup for a reason, everybody. It's a quantum soup. You just can't ladle out one bite. You have to eat it in spoonfuls of all the mixed ingredients, basically. Anyway, I think that exhausts the speculation on what that whole idea of it being you is, which we could probably still talk about for another 2 or 3 hours and I would find interesting. Anyway. Can I ask some more like just nuts and bolts questions about this flow of events? Okay, cool. So you're like 19, 20. You have the coolest parents ever that don't mind you're out banging around in clubs,
Yeah.
By the way, I used to live in Bristol, England.
Oh, right.
When I was around that same age. And that was like when drum and bass was very popular.
Yeah.
I'm 45, so about 10 years shy of your mark there, but I'm still a Trek fan.
Oh,
so
yes, yeah.
I know the character you're talking about there. Also, the holodeck on the Star Trek series comes to mind a lot as I think about, well, how does shit just fucking change? Like, how do cards just change? They're not real cards then. It's just their holograms, basically.
Yeah.
Well, it's that, or it's a Schrodinger's cat type of thing where it's always the cards she pulled and it's always not the cards she pulled, because quantum superpositioning of anything means it's always happening, aka there is literally just multiple like Emma is sitting there pulling the cards, and in universe 1 it's card A, and in universe 2 it's card B, and in universe, that's all happening simultaneously. And then in the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment, when you finally look inside the box, the which it is resolved. And so when you think about Emma pulling the cards, and then so that's the Schrodinger's cat. The cat is now in the box with the poison and the isotope. When she finally looks is when the experiment is resolved in the Schrodinger's cat, and it's exactly what happens in real fucking life with her fucking cards. When she looks, what cards they actually are is what's resolved. That literally means that the Grimble Grumble phenomena is a quantum phenomena, because it follows the quantum thought experiment, aka the good science of Schrodinger's cat, which is why that thought experiment is famous and taught to people as a way of learning quantum theory. It's just so fascinating. Like, quantum theory, which is totally independent of fairies, now shows up as a real fey trick more than once.
Yeah.
Now, if you go deep enough into quantum physics, fuck, I said we're going to get into nuts and bolts questions, and I'm way back over that they're us again. But the quantum physics idea is that we are all basically part of an unbroken vibrational field. Everything is just a vibration, all of it. Like, there is actually no physical matter. It's just all vibrating stuff.
Yeah.
So that then also goes back to like that thing answering you, I am you. I feel like it's not just an answer for you in that moment. Honestly, I feel, Carrie, that that's an answer for everyone listening. You know?
Yeah.
So maybe that Fae was visiting you through space and time, knowing you were eventually going to come on this show
At some point, yeah.
To then fully pose the existential question for me that I've been sniffing around at in these past 5 unpublished episodes. But gigantic speculations aside, and back to the ground. You're playing piano, kind of like after being out for the night, I think is how you described it.
Yes,
Is
yeah.
that accurate?
No, that
Okay.
was that was the orb experience. That was just during
Yeah,
the day.
I'm going all the way back. I'm going all the way back to ground zero here, to the first orb,
Yeah.
in fact. So do I have that right? You were out and you're
No,
coming back.
I was out the second time when the being turned up.
Okay, so the first time you're just...
I was just this was just middle of the afternoon, randomly just tinkering around on the keyboard. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for the distinction. We had just gone so much into the weeds on that whole IMU thing that I just wanted to make sure I had my linear stuff straight.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I needed to check. So, okay, so you're playing around. Do you remember what you were playing at all, or you were just kind of making up
No
tunes?
idea. I wish I could, but I don't think it was anything. I think if I needed to remember it, I would have done. I don't think it was anything significant. Either just mucking around, probably.
Okay, so you're playing music and you've got the heater kind of in front of you. You're sitting at the keyboard and you're playing. It kind of sounds like this thing showed up, you got shocked, jumped up, the keyboard flung out of the way, and you snapped back all kind of in one motion as this thing registered and then rushed at you. Okay. I can kind of feel it. Like, you're playing, you're like, look up, all of a sudden you're jumping up. That makes the keyboard go sailing and the heater, and then all of a sudden this thing rushes at you, which is kind of what makes you jump back. I think I got the flow there. That's incredible. This heat and the noise is something that really sticks out with the swooshing arm, because I can tell you my fairy was so loud when I saw it that it defies explanation. So I do want to talk to you about the noise in a minute. But let's just stick with this orb, because there's a lot of fascinating details about the orb. So you're saying it's got no defined edges, so amorphous in the sense, but around the size of like a football, but definitely round. When you first see it and you're sitting, was it like at head level with you when you were sitting?
It was actually, I'm kind of sitting on the bed, so that gives you my kind of position, and it was directly to the side, but just below me, just so it was literally in my eye line as I looked down, because I'm looking down at the keyboard, But then as I looked up slightly, it was just above where the keyboard of the eye line of my keyboard was. So it's literally right in my
Oh,
direct view as soon as I looked up.
so it was kind of hovering up to your where you're playing to your,
Yes,
yeah, I
yeah,
get you. Okay, that's when you first notice it.
yeah.
Interesting. And then when did it rush at your face thereafter? Like pretty much just right after that?
It was pretty, I would say it was a couple of seconds. I mean, that sounds like, no time at all, but it sort of showed itself to me first of all. So I knew it was there. I had enough time to look at it, to see what it looked like, and then it rushed at me.
It
Yeah.
sounds like, yeah, it sounds like the keyboard goes flying off your lap, you're grabbing a pillow. So there's a few seconds there. And the rushing is probably when you grab the pillow, but there's a few seconds before is what it sounds like. This gradation pattern, like, okay, let me try to ask you to talk audio about visual things as best as you can here.
Okay.
So blue and white gradational pattern, I'm imagining like, just this is just what I'm imagining, and you can correct me and try to fill in your own thing here so I know what you're actually talking about as best as possible here for myself and the audience is why I'm asking. I'm imagining like a Rubik's Cube, and then the Rubik's Cube has like basically blue and white squares more or less evenly on it. Is it that kind of thing that you're looking at, or is it something different?
Yes, I mean, it's similar. Yeah, it very similar to that, except that it's this sort of roundish sort of shape. Yeah.
So, but like there's squares. Is it like squares
Yeah,
basically?
little squares.
Okay. Yeah, like because grids could be diamond or whatever, depending on
Yes,
how they're
true. Yeah.
oriented.
No, it is. It's little sort of like a grid-like pattern, and it's just all in little squares. Yeah.
Interesting. And when you're like noticing this grid, like how, this is a tough question because I wasn't there, but like how are you noticing this grid? Do these look like solid little bits? Do they look like different colored pieces of light? Like how exactly is this?
No, it's not. It's not solid. It looks and like you could put your hand through this, and it would just be made of air. It's very, very soft looking. It wasn't harsh. It wasn't. The colors weren't harsh. These are very pastely kind of blue and a very misty kind of white. So it's not harsh. It's not. The colors aren't super, super bright. I could still see there was obviously my dressing table was just behind it, and I could still see straight through it. But it had a definite pattern and a definite color.
Interesting. It sounds like the word opacity comes to mind, which is the idea that you can see through something slightly.
Yeah.
It's used in graphic design all the time. Looking at someone wearing sunglasses is a good example of opacity. You can still kind of see the eye behind the shade.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it sounds like this is very opaque, very much not. I can't remember which the word. Chandran had it right. Opaque is black, and not opaque is clear. So it sounds like this is halfway between opaque, meaning totally black, and not. So you can kind of see it, but still see through it. I get it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of how I was imagining it, actually. So thanks for clearing that up. But it's really good to ask these smaller details because someone might be like, "Oh, this is a solid, looks like a piece of pottery,
Yeah.
shiny."
No, it wasn't at all.
Okay, so you kind of have this like pastelly, gradated energy orb in front of your face, about the size of a football, and it's kind of blue and white. Was it kind of fringy at the edges? Like, because I know you're saying there's no solid edges. What did the edges kind of look like to the best of your description ability?
Well, they just weren't defined. You could see that it was circular, but again, it just didn't have that sort of. If you're sort of, I don't know, maybe putting a circle on a page, it didn't look like that. The edges were not defined. It just sort of bled out into nothingness. Yeah, that's the only way I can put it.
I'm not going to ask you too much more because one of the hardest things about the Fae is to describe what they look like or how they move. When it shot at your face, was pretty quick, or was it kind of like was it a fast motion towards your face?
Oh my goodness, that was, it was so fast that I just didn't have time to move out the way at all. It was super, super fast. Yeah.
They're very fast. The instantaneous almost, it
Yes.
appears.
Yeah.
And I say that not like I know anything. I'm just talking about my own visual sighting of Petunia, the purple fairy that came into my boat, especially as she took off, is what struck me at how fucking fast
Yeah.
the thing was.
No, it was very fast. Yeah.
It's just gone. And also the thing too is it would appear that they go from like 0 to that fast instantly.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. I mean, it was hovering there for a second and then whoosh, it would just flew.
Yeah, like a normal object in motion has an increase in velocity until it hits top speed. These things enter velocity at top speed.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. There was no time between it hovering there and then being directly on my face. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's so cool. What a treat. And so now it's at your face and it's entering your face. This heat is what I want to talk about next. So you said it wasn't burning, but it was very, very warm. Just try to talk about, because you were talking about the heat and flow of your overall storytelling. Just try to talk to me more about what this sensation was like independently right now. What did it feel like when it was coming into your face exactly?
At first, it felt almost prickly. As soon as it sort of hit my face, I felt this prickly kind of feeling all over my face. But then it started to get warmer and warm until it turned into this very intense heat. But it wasn't a heat that was going to make you hot. It wasn't a heat that felt uncomfortable. It was just super, super warm and really intense. That's the only way I can describe it. But it just wasn't going to hurt. It wasn't hot. The way that we would touch hot water, it wasn't like that. It was just this intense warmth.
Many people who have paranormal encounters talk about a rapid decline in temperature as associated with a spirit encounter. You do hear warm sometimes, but not as common. So this is quite a remarkable detail. Where I can draw an analogy is to like, in my journey of trying to heal myself all these years through all these traumas, I've gone to various like quote unquote energy healers. And I've had some pretty interesting experiences with some of them, which do feel like, well, where's that heat coming from off of your hands? How's that working here, bro?
Yeah.
Where I'm like, and why do I feel so much better when you're doing that? I don't really know how much of that stuff is real or not, but there is an interesting article that came across my feed on Reddit recently from the 1960s in which they were trying to debunk energy healing, basically. And it was a study done by, I think, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology back then, where they did, at the time, have like various, 1960s level implements for detecting various stuff. And they basically determined that there was a type of low level infrared radiation present when people were quote unquote like harnessing chi, or doing energy work or doing Reiki. And that effectively they were able to demonstrate using borrowed equipment from NASA in part, that when these practitioners were like focusing their quote unquote energy towards these devices, that they were actually picking up a type of infrared light.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, infrared radiation is warm.
Right.
And like that's how an infrared sauna works, for example. And so infrared being invisible but warm is perhaps part of the mix of what these things were doing that day, or what that orb was doing that day. Because if there's a corollary between like us, as again going back to this idea that they're us, if we can generate prana or chi or energy, and we can actually do that, it can actually be detected by a piece of scientific equipment as coming in the form of light when we are consciously trying to do that. If in fact these energy entities are, as we're speculating, real manifestations of energy,
Yeah.
then, and they're also quote unquote invisible slash visible. They seem to be, like I keep saying, it's just all animated light. And so I wonder if this orb is proving in that heat as a lesson. Your experiences are really interesting because there's so much direct contact. And there's this part where they say I'm you, that it makes me really want to stick around on your experiences a little bit longer than usual, because I'm like, like what does it mean that an orb can enter your face too, is a very profound question
Yeah. Yeah.
that may be resolved in part by this idea that everything is just illusion. So the how does that happen is because it's both the orb and you are both an energetic representation of a type.
Yes.
Or I mean, or something physically entered your face, like,
Yeah.
which, you don't have any scars or marks, so it doesn't seem like it physically entered your face.
No, it's hard. Yeah, it is, and this is why I think it's taken me, 20 odd years to even try and vocalize in any way what it felt like or what it was, because I just could not. I had no words to describe it before at all. But yeah, it felt really like whatever it was, it went straight into me. I think that's why I was so disturbed, but also so excited by it, I guess. It felt so different.
Like when it was going on, I mean, if you got past the scared feeling, did it have any other kind of emotional takeaways when it was occurring? Can you remember?
Well, I was thinking about this the other night. I mean, I think I'd spoken to you about coming, I'd written a little bit to you about the experience, and I was thinking about it, and I remember I was just sitting down and thinking, well, maybe that experience there when I hit the door, as when I got up, and the first thing I thought was, I don't want anything to happen to me like that ever again. I was so scared by it that I just thought, no, just no. Everything in my being was just no, thank you. I can do without that. And then, as I was sitting there, sort of thinking about it again, just before speaking to you, I was thinking I would literally give anything to have something like that happen again. So I've come completely kind of full circle on it. I would love nothing more than to have that happen again, just to reaffirm the fact that it happened at all. So I find that kind of odd that I would love that to happen again. It's the one thing that I have thought about for 20 odd years. I would just love for that to happen again. But it's yeah. So maybe I thought that at the time because maybe I knew that in time you're going to want this to happen to you again. So you're going to be eating those words, and I certainly have.
Wow, that's profound. Also, jokes aside, be very careful what you wish for with that degree of intensity around this show. Just gonna
Yeah.
leave that there
Yeah.
where it is.
True.
Maybe we'll be bringing Carrie back next week to talk about a fresh orb to the face. Hopefully, or maybe I was about to say hopefully not while we're talking, but then I ate my words and I was going to say hopefully while we're talking. So, hey, multicolored checkered orb, if you're swimming around Carrie's subconscious right now, feel free to pop on to the show. We'd love to hear and see you. Next thing you know, Carrie's like, oh my God. And she's falling over. It wouldn't surprise me. It would go right it would go right in the catalog with Brett and Emma's astonishment on their voices. Anyhow. Okay, this is really going places. I love this particular set of discussions from, this long ago. Also, you're kind of at a really great age for this to be a good memory. You're not like too young and you're not too old. It's a firmly placeable memory. Okay, so yeah, you got this tingly feeling, this warm feeling, this checkered thing. Did it feel, this is a silly question, but I don't think it's something I really totally got the answer to. Did it feel like it was like now in your head, or did it feel like it kept going past you?
Um, I don't know. I feel like what my instinct is, and it is just my instinct. I can't describe entirely where it went, or did it pass through me? I don't know. But my instinct is that it went inside me. That is my instinct.
That's what my instinct tells me too, and everything about your story feels like it went into you through your basically your third eye or your crown chakra or your face, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. Not to go like all vegan again, but I do sometimes. When I say like everything is representation and I talk about your mouth and your face, it's where you put things into you. It's also where you get things out of you. And so you have to be very careful with the words you say and the things you think up in that dome of yours. And by the same measure, you got to be really careful about the things you put into that dome through all of its openings. It's, don't fill your ears with bullshit and don't fill your mouth with bullshit either, to the best of your ability. And it takes a long time to know the difference. I'm 45 and I'm still figuring it out, so no judgment. But the fact that the orb is entering your face is a lesson. The fact that this idea of like what is real, what is a representation, and the orb entering your face is a lesson. I'm not sure exactly what the lesson is, but it sort of seems to flow along the lines of it's all a representation, not as real as we think. And then now the next day, or a few days later,
Yeah.
I do agree with you that the two events are somewhat connected.
Yeah.
If you've never had other events that are analogous before or since, that's another reason to draw a connection and have it feel valid. So I would say that I think they're connected, if that's all accurate, the stuff that I'm assuming there. Because you probably would have told me other stuff if there'd been more. So. Okay, so now I really do want to ask more about this Peter Pan figure and the kind of flow again. So take me through it. So now this is the time you've been out for a bit and you've come in late.
Yeah.
What got you looking in the mirror in the first place again? Just remind me of that, please.
Well, it was the feeling behind me. I was sitting on the bed, and I'm sort of keeping warm against this heater. And I can feel something behind me. It's moving. The bed itself is kind of moving up and down as though somebody is literally walking on the bed. And I'm thinking, and I'm looking down and I'm thinking, what on earth is that feeling? Like, well, what's happening? And of course, this mirror is so big. This dressing table I've got is so big, and the mirror is literally horizontal, so you can see from one end of the bed to the other whilst you're looking in the mirror. And as I look up to see whatever this movement is, I look up and I see this figure, this being. Um, it doesn't have a face particularly. There's no definable sort of features or anything. It's just got head and arms, and it's in the shape of a human being, but that is the only identifiable thing about it. There's nothing else. I can't see fingers. There's no detail. There's certainly no clothes. Nothing like that. It's just this very shadowy figure, and that makes it sound really dark and spooky, but it wasn't at all. Whatever this thing was, it was intensely friendly. That's the only way I can put it. Um, it seemed like had this very young energy, which is why I think I thought of it as Peter Pan-ish. Like it was wise but young. And interestingly, yes, no, this is a detail that I think I'd forgotten about because I didn't perceive it as being important necessarily to say. But one of the things I picked up straight away was this wasn't a male or a female. It had no gender. And I remember thinking at the time, I had never seen another being without a gender. and yet it was still recognizable as a being. It looked human, but there was no gender to it.
Very interesting. Did it have did it have a pointed hat or tip to its head? What was the head like?
No, not at all. It was rounded like a person, like a human being.
Thank you for answering that question. I just asked because Chandran, a guest I spoke to, has also seen one of these shadow people before.
Yeah.
It describes it very similarly to you, with the face kind of lacking detail. In the case of his, he started like the eyes were not eyes, but you could tell there were kind of eyes there, even though there weren't eyes there, is how he describes it, which really is evocative of you saying it doesn't really have much of a face. What exactly about it, if it doesn't have a pointed hat, what is making you feel Peter Pan about it exactly? Can you maybe help me get
Yeah,
there
I
with you?
think
Yeah.
that was not necessarily in its appearance. It didn't look like Peter Pan. It felt like Peter Pan. It felt wise but young. That sounds really strange, but it did. It felt wise but very young. It had this lovely kind of playful energy to it, really playful. Like it felt like it had all this energy and it was just bounding around. It didn't feel like I suppose I get the feeling that when human beings do things, when we move around, we make noise. We can be clumsy, noisy. We heavy-handed. This felt as light as a feather. It could just move without any difficulty at all. It would be like a seal in water. It just flowed. Um, and it just felt very young and very friendly, loving. It didn't feel, there was nothing negative about it at all.
Thank you so much for helping me understand why you're saying Peter Pan. It's extremely valuable. Why those answers are extremely insightful. When you meet a friendly fae, and I'm just talking about this from my experience with Petunia, they move around effortlessly. For
Yeah.
one, you're totally correct, and they're so fast. Was this thing also moving around quite fast?
No, and this is something that makes me feel that it was such a stark contrast from what had happened 3 days before. That I was so petrified of this thing launching itself at me at such speed, and yet this thing moved very slowly. It was very gentle. There was no rushing. There was no, quick movements at all. In fact, I could go and make a cup of tea in the middle of this experience and it was still there when I got back. So it felt much more, it was a calm energy, whereas this orb felt, just the speed of it was just so strong and the fear was so intense, and yet this one there was no fear associated with it at all, and it moved very slowly and very deliberately, but in this very sort of warm, friendly, fun-loving kind of way. I just felt like it had that kind of energy to it.
There's so many details about this second encounter that are very fascinating. The fact that you're perceiving the physical weight of a thing on the bed is one very, very standout detail that I have to ask about in a minute.
Yeah.
Then the fact that you're feeling this type of energy from it is another standout detail. That's really cool to learn and to hear about in detail. Thanks for going there. Thanks for the time you're taking with me overall here tonight, Carrie.
Oh, it's
I
my
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. Okay, I was going to ask, have you told many people about these things at all? Or am I
No,
one of the first people
not at all. I mean, for obvious reasons, um, because they do sound really wild. I told one friend many, many years ago, and she had seen fairies as a child, so this was not news to her. But she only told me about her experience after I had told her about what had happened. But she completely believed it. But she couldn't work it out either. She had no clue. She couldn't kind of help me to uh, digest any of this at all. So, but she was fascinated by it. But she was the only person I told.
I gotta say, thanks for finding my show. Thanks for trusting me with your story. And thanks for, I guess, in a way, like helping me feel validated in my hypothesis for starting this show in the first place, which is that people don't get to talk about this stuff, and that if they did, we could have figured it all out.
Yeah, yeah.
So thanks for coming on and contributing to all of those sentiments there. I sincerely appreciate that a lot. And I mean that maybe disproportionately tonight, because there's so much coming up from what we're talking about that needs to be part of this conversation. So, okay, you can feel it, you can sense it. The cup of tea, the perfect British defense mechanism for any.
Yeah, whenever in a panic, just go and make a cup of tea.
The Germans are dropping bombs. Listen, let's just have
It
a
is
cup of tea and
ridiculous.
consider it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Truly, the stiff upper lip, is remarkable with the Brits. Also, the humor of like, just, I need to go get a cup of tea right now is kind of, Monty Python in and of itself. And I do kind of appreciate it for that.
Yeah.
It's a bit Ministry of Silly Walks. You know what I mean? Like, okay, there's a Peter Pan shadow entity on my bed. Let's pause for a cup of tea.
Well, it is. It's the extraordinary with the mundane. It's quite funny.
It's totally on that level, yeah. Anyway, we'll get back to the tea in a minute, but what I want to ask is, I think, centered around the feeling of it on the bed. So, once you kind of spun around and looked at it, not in the mirror, this is a two-part question. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like it was really there, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes.
If you're both seeing it and feeling it on the bed. This is very, very interesting. And you said that originally, if I followed your story, you were looking at it in the mirror primarily.
Yes.
I've got the picture now. You got this long horizontal powder room style mirror at your table thing, whatever ladies call that. I forget what it's called right now. And the bed is around the same orientation, and this is opposite the bed.
That's
so
right.
If you're sitting long ways on the bed, like not at the foot of the bed, but long ways on the bed, this mirror is basically long ways alongside the bed.
Yeah.
So when you were first looking at it in the mirror behind you, like you feel this thing, you see it in the mirror. I want to talk about the appearance of it both in the mirror and then when you turned around. Mm-hmm. And I also want to talk about the fact that it's on the bed. So in many fairy encounters, and this is a tough question to ask for people that haven't given me the specific detail, because I never want to lead a guest. So I'll just sort of do my best here. Some people say they look super flat, like they're a sticker on the wall. Other people see them in the third dimension, like around, limb containing animals, mm-hmm. type of thing. Which was this?
This was not a cartoon shadow on the wall. That's definitely not what it was. It could move around in a very similar way to the way that we would move around. So to me, the limbs were in the same proportion as ours would be, but it just didn't look like us.
But when it was moving around the bed, were you able to see the bed where it was moving along with it, type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how really interesting that you brought that up, because I'd forgotten about that. When I sort of stood up and looked at it directly, I could see the bed moving. There was a sort of duvet on the bed, and that was moving as it was stepping. That was moving with it.
It sounds like it was three-dimensionally there, not two-dimensional.
Yeah, it would absolutely. There was no sort of hint of it being flat or anything like that. It was absolutely there.
That's extremely powerful, that you have a full-body apparition, toe to tip, with interaction with where it's standing, visible to the eye, and you can perceive its weight. I mean, that's remarkable.
Yeah.
He was really there. But so's the skull that's in Brett's hand. She's got it. It's a real object, but it wasn't there before it was there. So I do think that everything is both physical and not, which is so hard to really get your head around, but it becomes the Occam's razor most logical explanation for this is a considered seriously considered set of subject matter talking points. Like if you think of every story as an entry into a analytical log, like imagine you're trying to interpret satellite data. You know, you're going to look at all this feedback and you're going to look, oh, hey, there's a blip. Oh, hey, there's another blip, right? At what point do all the blips in sequence make you go, okay, that's an alien correspondence?
Yeah.
There's a point at which it becomes an undeniable sequence. And so when I listen to you talk, I think like, not at all do I think, oh, that's unbelievable. I think that is totally believable in context to everything else I've heard this past 7 or 8 months hosting this show.
Yeah.
And it follows like so many of the other truths too. They have an emotionally imparted psychological communication or a psychic communication about who and how they are. Right, high fidelity into your heart and into your head.
Yeah.
So like you just kind of felt this thing was like Peter Pan. I mean, it's really interesting. Like, would you agree with me on this particular thing I'm about to say here? I guess is my question. You just get a feel for some people of who that person is just looking at them. Do you get that sense?
Yes, yeah.
Like, I mean, you have to talk to people to really get to know the truth. I've learned that in this show 101 times, but I do feel like you can sense what a thing is all about by just encountering it with your eyes and just being near it. Like, you can kind of tell when an animal is curious about you or afraid of you, or
Oh,
you can just
absolutely.
tell
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I view the fact that you're picking up an emotional sense from this thing as very valid. Like it was probably exactly as you're describing it. Very happy, very full of joy. You turned around and you see it moving the stuff on the bed. At that point is probably where your brain got overwhelmed enough that you needed to go do something normal.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad you kind of could find the words for that, because I couldn't. I think that was it. I just tapped out. I just thought, no, I can't deal with it anymore. I'm going to just go and have a break. But when I've listened, I can't remember what show it was. It could have been Joe Hickey Hall's show. She had someone on who mentioned that a Fae type being, possibly a Fae type being, had asked her to get him a cup of tea.
Cup of tea. I know that's a Joe Hickey Hall episode.
Yes,
it is.
yeah.
I know that,
And I
yeah.
remember sort of my ears kind of pricked up at that, and I thought, oh, okay. Was I making some kind of offering, or did I just need to get a break? I don't know. But I went and got that cup of tea though. So maybe I was just I just needed to tap out and get away.
I get the pleasure of being the objective listener when I do this, and then the guest gets the pleasure of hearing themselves back afterwards in my loving embrace as objective host, which then produces the effect many of my guests have experienced, where my guest frantically messages me after listening to themselves talk to themselves back on my show, and like, oh my God, like, listening to myself talk back, I finally fucking get it. Because when you just saying it out loud, it's so like throwing darts at nothing.
Yeah.
But then when you're listening to another person talk, those darts that you felt like were throwing at nothing are all of a sudden landing in your ear. Let me just make that thought more complete. When you listen to Fascinating Fae and it's not your own episode, those people are just launching darts into space to me. I don't know what this thing was. I don't fucking know. But then the listeners get back to me and they're like, hey, that fucking person who just said that thing, that's exactly like my thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you think you're on launching darts into space, actually there's people listening right now who those darts are hitting. But then later, when you also listen back for yourself, the darts you're launching out of yourself in confusion, you get the experience of listening to your own self like you're listening to everybody else talk. And then you get that listener experience of, oh, as I listen to this being said to me, I understand it, which is totally different than as I'm saying it to you.
Yeah, you're
So it's
getting to
very, very
yeah,
profound.
you're getting to experience it in a different light. Yeah.
I say that just to say, I think your young brain just tapped out and needed to go do something normal.
Yeah.
That's what I really think.
I'd agree with that.
But I really like that you remembered that Joe Hickey Hall tea detail, because it shows me that you're objectively trying to analyze your own experiences for
Oh,
real. And that
absolutely.
means that one detail of you going there tells me, hey, everybody, our friend tonight is actually totally confused about what happened to her and is doing her best to figure it out. And she's taken to listening to other people's voices as a means of figuring it out. Do you think that listening to people's voices is better than reading stories on Reddit?
Oh, absolutely. No question. I think when you're getting it from the horse's mouth, as it were, just hearing people's tone, picking up whether it was fear or joy or they loved it or they hated it or anything like that. I think all of that is just invaluable because you're picking up feelings, and that helps you kind of assess your own, I guess.
This is all amazing, and I agree with you 100%. It's part of the reason I started this show. It's not like I can't read stories about fairy encounters. I can find them. There's a fairy census, for fuck's sake. Do any of those stories feel like creative writing pursuits to me? 95%. But if I got those people on this show, I might change my mind after I heard them say it for real, like I'm listening to you here tonight. So there's so much value in the voice. There's so much truth in the
Yeah.
telling when you hear it in the voice, so. And tonight, as you contribute that and you listen back to this later, this will be a nice moment to contemplate for yourself to see if, you really do think that cup of tea was an offering or just a tap out. I'm kind of with you on the tap out just from listening to you objectively. But
Yeah.
that's just me trying to be helpful and give you some feedback. So
No,
you
that's
come
useful.
back after. Oh, cool. Oh, thanks. I'm just a guy who saw a fairy one time, Carrie. I don't know. I really don't know. But much like you, if I like, I've said before, if any of my guests, let me just say that more correctly, any of the events that my guests are explaining are enough that they could have ended up starting their own podcast because of it. So we're just two peas in a pod.
Yeah, true.
I can tell you right now that I don't know if that fairy was there for 3 seconds, like I think, or 35 minutes, because I think there's lost time there. I'm not going to say that fairy entered my face, but it entered my heart and mind to the point where now there's this show.
Yes, yeah.
And they definitely get into your fucking gears.
It did what it needed to do, I guess.
And you know what? Like, this there's so many things that I need to still ask you about your thing. So, at what point do you ask it? Who are you? This is before or after you come back for the cup of tea. Can you remind me, please?
This was after I came back. So I came back, I realized it's still there. It's not just all in my head. It's still just sitting on my bed or standing on my bed. And I think it was at that point that I kind of asked it, who are you?
But just in your head, you asked it.
Just in my head.
And you heard the answer correspondingly in your head, correct?
Correct, yeah.
This is an important question, and there's no wrong answer here. Was it within your own voice or a different voice?
Oof.
And it may be that it's indistinguishable, and that's okay too. I'm just because sometimes it's distinctly another voice, and other times it's more just like your intuition or your self voice chiming in a thing that you didn't think, if that makes any sense. I'm just wondering if you can remember which it was.
Yeah, it wasn't my voice. I think most people are familiar with that voice in their head, aren't they? That's quite a familiar voice. You recognise the tone of your own inner voice, and it wasn't mine. Um, but it also wasn't a completely unfamiliar voice. but I can't say that it was, I didn't hear a man's booming voice or a woman's voice, or I just heard a very definite. I think what really struck me at the time was that as soon as I had asked the question, I hadn't even finished answering the question, asking the question. I went, "Who are you?" And there was immediate sort of fire back straight into my head. I'm you. It didn't even hesitate. So before I'd even finished the thought of asking that question to it, the answer was already in my head.
Ezra from episode 6 calls it instant high fidelity communication.
Right. Okay.
That's how he put it. He's like, I just instantly knew the answer, every part of it, right away, immediately, completely, emotionally. I knew instant high fidelity communication from this thing.
Yes. Yeah. That's how. Yeah. That sounds perfect for what this was. Yeah.
Thank you, Ezra from episode 6. Now, let's just deconstruct the idea that they're you for a second, and Ezra's story. So Ezra is in this. He's 16. He's with his girlfriend. She's 15, 16. This is like young love, We've all been
Yeah.
there. They snuck out, so there's the excitement of sneaking out. They're now going to make out on a sneak out at the beach. Does that not sound like a very high energy moment? It really does, right? And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, there's this thing, and it's like I think that like that energy moment powers this thing into the third dimension to come and take a peek at them.
I remember. Yeah. I remember this. I remember this episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's also there because it's sucking up some of that pre-makeout tingly vibe in the air, if you would.
I think it's feeding off that.
I do. I think that Petunia was feeding off of me and Mrs. X in the exact same kind of moment. And I think that in other people's encounters, there could be a pretty easy corollary between, oh, well, that person's feeling this way right now, and that happens. But that's just to say that, like, part of the breakthrough can occur when you're having a super high moment. To take it a little bit back down to ground, but draw the same corollary. When Emma and I are talking, she's in a high vibe, like she's having a great time talking with Jim, podcast host, about subject matter she loves, right? We're laughing away. I'm like, what happened with those cards? And then the laughing about what happened with the cards is kind of like Ezra and his girlfriend about to make out. It's kind of like me and Mrs. X laughing in each other's lap on this art boat. Now the cards switch
Right.
again, right? So
Right. Okay.
I don't know if I'm right about it or not. It's like Brett. She loves my show. She wants to give books away. She wants people to listen to Fascinating Faye. She thinks that listening to Fascinating Faye is like living in an episode of I'm gonna blow it, but what's the help me out here? I'll think of it later.
Yeah.
It's oh gosh, wait, Twin Peaks. It's like living in an episode of Twin
Oh,
Peaks
okay. Yes, I get you.
kind
Yeah.
of thing, but for real. And so when she's about to come on the show, she's like really stoked to come on the show. And then I'm really stoked to have Brett on because I'm like, wow, this chick's got like hundreds of thousands of followers and she loves my show and she's a real fairy channel. I'm stoked to have Brett on. She's hilarious. I like Brett. And then
Yeah.
the skull appears. So like that all it can happen around the energy you're contributing, but also just you as a person individually on your own in your room by yourself can be enough. It doesn't have to be like a super special moment, I don't think necessarily.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, with this talk in the air about when other people have seen them, was there anything going on for you around that time that correlates or comes up, or was it just an otherwise normal few days for you? I know you mentioned like it had been a time in which you were out a lot. Were you kind of feeling like high for life around that time, like going to these clubs? Like, I'm just
Yeah. I
curious.
mean, it is interesting in that the first time, obviously, when I saw the orb, I was playing music, which I was being very, very, yeah, I was being very creative, and I'd been very creative all my life. To this day, I probably still am, but um, yeah, so that sort of resonates with me that I was playing music, um, and was possibly singing at the same time, and I know that they may well be attracted to that kind of energy. Um, of human beings playing music and singing and dancing, and all of those kind of creative pursuits, I think they're probably very attracted to. Um, so yeah, I'm that was certain that was only just that one occasion. I guess maybe what was happening around it was that I was going out and listening to a lot of music as well at the same time. And I used to go to this club night, and the club night was called Heart and Soul. And the kind of music they played, I guess, would be reminiscent of, it is kind of house music, but it was very quite avant-garde house music. And very often, even to this day, I can dream about that music. So I don't know whether it's kind of imprinted itself on me, probably somehow. Um, but yeah, I was in a very creative time in my life, I guess, and I was having lots of fun and going out all the time. And you are at that age, I guess. Um, but I don't think anything really significant emotionally was happening. I think I was too young for, yeah, probably too young for anything really. I'm still living at home and living the free life, So yeah, but that's all I can put it down to, is that I was playing music. I was very into music at the time.
I honestly feel that that's not a coincidence here whatsoever, especially if at the time when the Blue Orb with the white checkered and Blue Orb originally appeared, you were making like free creation and singing and making free creation. There's a lot I've learned about what is muse and the inseparability between the creative process and the creative idea from the Fae, and the fact that the Fae are like as intangible as an idea and as tangible as an idea at the same time.
Yeah,
Because an idea is totally intangible and tangible at the same time. And then we have this capacity within us to hold an idea and just let it die, or to make it into something. Much like these Fae are us, are everything around us is in fact us, in this very physical and non-physical way. My friend DK, whose music is at the end of all these episodes, one of the things he used to say all the time, and it probably drove a lot of people crazy, but it's something that I now think about all the time, is he used to just say, everything's magic in a way. And it would be like, he would say it when, like, I don't know, just like stuff was happening, like that wasn't even magical. It would just be like, someone would just be like, just like playing a guitar, right? And he'd just be like, isn't that magical? Like the fact that there's wood and there's strings and that's all like, you can hear it and it's all like here. And, he just like, basically, in fact, everything is in fact magical. If you think about everything as a representation, water, magical, air, magical, sunlight, magical. You couldn't cook these things up in your wildest dreams, but they're here.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah. And so I think that the Fae are a kind of, sorry. Whenever I say the words, I think that the Fae are, I want to slap myself. I just don't fucking know. Please, everybody, be reminded, just a guy who saw a fairy one time. But someone's got to say what they think, so it might as well be me, I guess, If I do this enough, I get some credibility and some license to say what I think. I have been speculating without, I'm at the point where I'm even more confused than when I started of how this is all possible. I talked to this guy, Tristan, and his father, Robert, and Robert is quite like a study of the Fae, if you would. And his son was having visions of the Fae starting at 8 up until like 20, and they created a literal voluminous tome of vision diaries. But he says to me, just plain as day, and I'm asking him, I'm like, how the fuck does this happen? How does that happen? How does this gnome know what I'm about to do? How does he know where this person is? How does he go through space and time to line up this sequence of events? Tell me, Robert, I'm fucking confused. Help me understand. And he just says, plain as day to me, he says, these entities, when they can see that you're trying to make contact with them, will change your destiny.
Wow. That's quite a thing to say.
And then he says, they have a different understanding and access to time and space than we do.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, you know how like the elements around you, the ones I just described, like water, for example, we can make water do stuff for us here on Earth, right?
Right,
Time,
okay.
time is like water to the Fae. They can make it do stuff. You know how we can make light do stuff here on Earth? You know,
Yeah.
time is like light to the Fae. They can make it do stuff.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Doesn't it though? When you put it in those, that's Robert feeding it back to me. So he
Right.
says, if you think about why your show is unfolding that way, it's because yes, they're going back in time to do things. They're going ahead in time to do things. They're going through a matrix of souls like a telephone book, and they're picking out the ones that are listening to your show that are going to be selected to receive a cat skull one time that they don't know is going to be connected to a cat skull. An Australian received a totally separate time until they both are connected through the show, and then one receives a skull live on air to make it all make sense. Something
Right.
seemingly spanning 30 years across totally separate people's lives, all of a sudden coming to happen in the episode process of this show, is totally unable to be understood by me until you allow yourself to relax, let go, and accept, yeah, they have the space-time continuum at their fingertips in addition to everything else they can do.
Yeah, and that might make sense to why we are so fascinated by the Fae, because they can manipulate something that we feel like we can't. Like you say, we can do things with water, we can do things with our lights, all of those things, but for us, we feel like our time is purely linear. We're only going in one direction. Um, we feel like perhaps we can't manipulate it, and people always say, I guess, that time is the most valuable of commodities that we have, and yet we can't change the nature of it. You're born, there's a beginning, middle, and an end, and that's it. And no one's ever been able to move that pendulum around. And perhaps the Fae can, and maybe that's part of our fascination, is that if we could harness that, can we then change our environment as well?
You also, through the lens of that revelation as being true, start to understand why they've been revered, why they've been feared, why they've been
Yeah.
talked about as basically being magical entities. It's so utterly fascinating to realize, like, the half the shit that I'm experiencing is like out of folklore books.
Yeah.
But it's like got a 2024 flavor to it. You know what I mean? It's like the remake of Romeo and Juliet with guns instead of swords, and Claire Danes. But like, because this is like a modern day fairy tale, fascinating.
Yeah.
Fair. Not the least of which is you coming on here at this juncture with these important experiences of a full-sized shadow person dancing around on your bed, answering you the really mind bender of this entire series, in my opinion, which is the question of what are you, who are you, I'm you, instantaneously.
Yeah. That's the one that kind of gets to me as well. It's like, oh wow, okay.
Wouldn't it have been nice if it hadn't said that and you just saw the thing? Because then, it could just be like a weird thing you saw one time.
Yeah, yeah, but it felt so, the whole experience, even the orb. I mean, I should probably say also that I'm at this point, I've had multiple experiences of all kinds of different things. So this has now been put into a context in my head, which is not just, it's not been just a singular experience. There's been other things happen, which I won't go into now, but that that idea that it's that this is you, it felt very obviously it felt very personal. It wasn't like I was just on a nice walk somewhere and I happened to see a small gnome crossing my path. This happened to me, at me, through me, and it felt very personal, like I was being directly pointed at. And that's always fascinated me, but also slightly find a little bit scary. But at the same time, I would literally love that to happen again so that I could believe it all over again, I guess.
Well, there's things to tease this podcast host with, and then there are things to tease this podcast host with, and more stories about what makes you think this is all part of a series of events is definitely in the latter category.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That said,
Yeah.
I, out of respect for your time and the audience's time, always try to keep Fascinating Fae episodes to around the 2-hour mark. So what we'll do here is leave that as one of those to be continued. I'll have my friend Carrie back at a later time, if that's cool with you.
That would be lovely. Yeah, that would be great.
I'm sure myself and the audience are waiting with bated breath until that day. I don't think I have too many more questions that aren't going to get us right back into this whole hours-long conversation about what the whole idea that they are us means. But I will just finish with a final point. The intimacy on display in the actions cataloged through this show creation process, both in the retellings and in the lived experience of the show, suggest a real intimacy. And that also fucks me up and freaks me out. I'm right there with you. It's totally weird. It's the weirdest part about this. Imagine if we all realized that the Fae are in fact us, that the conjurings of our mind, that the thoughts and feelings of our heart go not only into each other like a hug, oh, that feels nice, but actually interface with reality so substantially that they bring to rise entities. And that there's a type of archetypal assemblage of energies, that now these entities are an archetype, but there's also like an individualistic type of thing to them. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a chia pet, or like a thing of sea monkeys. You got to add the water to see the magic happen, but latently there's a bunch of sea monkeys in that little packet just waiting to come to life. Or like,
Yeah.
the chia pet is, just needs to add water, and all of a sudden it's going to be a fun little chia pet. It's just a bunch of seeds and a little clay thing before you do it, but then the magic kind of happens in the combination of it all. There's something more to the some part of the ingredients with the Fae. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like if you're making a batch of cookies and you're expecting to get 12, with the Fae you get 14 cookies. And you're like, but wait, where did those extra 2 cookies come from? And then they answer you, were you? And you're like, what? What? I followed this recipe. There's only supposed to be 12 cookies in here. How the fuck are there more? It doesn't make any sense. It's on that level of something
Yes.
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So we'll never know until we die. And when we do, hopefully we get an answer. But in this lifetime, I wonder to myself quite continuously, if these limited people that are coming forward and experiencing the show are experiencing this, what's the upper limit of that? And if the whole society was today like, yeah, the fairies are real, and would literally a fairy city just appear out of the mist on the horizon that's been there the entire time and we just didn't fucking know? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that would be. I wonder how many people. I wonder how many people would be able to handle that.
well, I'll tell you what, if I can be made to handle bloodshed and terror and strife in an otherwise garden as the normal, then people would adjust pretty quickly, I think. Because I feel like myself and everyone around me has been accustomed to wild craziness and just gets on with their day anyway. So how would that be that much different, you know?
True.
You know, truly the spectacle of war is the craziest thing I can imagine. And so the Fae would be welcome relief if they showed up and were the main news, in fact. That's honestly what I think.
Oh, wouldn't they just?
Yeah, and I do say to people, aliens be damned, the Fae are already here. They're who we have to worry about. I'll tell you what, Carrie, as I move towards this amazing conversation wrapping up here tonight, I'm going to ask you my favorite go-away questions for my guests. There's no right answer or wrong answer to this next question, and you've kind of already had the question answered for you by one of them itself. So setting aside the idea that the answer to the question of what are fairies is we are you, but thanks for that, by the way, in advance to your Fae through space and time for already answering my question, my favorite question on the show. I will ask it for you here tonight. What do you think fairies are, Carrie?
I think fairies are a part of us. I think that's true. And I think they are magical entities, magical beings that have been around us for possibly forever. And for some unknown reason, they would like to commune with us. I think human beings often feel like we're just sort of failing slowly or falling slowly. So having any kind of magical experience feels completely validating that we're not just falling through space. There may well be a meaning to our existence, and maybe we are on a journey to finding out exactly what they are, and maybe when we find out what they are, we'll find out what we really are. That's my best answer, I guess.
I love that answer. I wonder what we are all the time in relation to this debate. Because the existential gift of a Fae encounter is that what is reality becomes the next logical question, not what was that thing. It was, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, what is reality if that can exist?
Like if I see a weird bird, I'm going to be like, what was that bird? I'm not going to be like, what's reality?
Yeah, true.
But you see a Fae, you both think, what was that bird? But you also think, what's reality in the same breath. So
yeah,
this is precisely why they don't leave you as events for 35, 40, 50 years, because they strip your sense of reality down to the core. That's probably why you're like, I don't want anything like that to happen to me again. A 19-year-old's not ready to have
anything like that happen. No.
For that matter, most people aren't. But especially at 19, I can see that's a very genuine reaction to a real event of that magnitude. I really think that that's true storytelling you've come forward here with tonight. That said, thank you for that answer about what fairies may or may not be, which is something I do think a lot of the audience loves hearing guests answer. So thanks for contributing your answer to the mix. Can I do some housekeeping while you think about your last words? Is that cool?
Of course, yes.
Okay. Well, everybody, you've been listening tonight to Fascinating Fae. I'm your host, Jim. If you've had a gradated, amorphous, blue and white orb enter your face as you were creating music in your teenage years and you'd like to be on the show, or, you know, for that matter, any other fae, including Peter Pan, Shadow Beans, and anything and everything in between, get a hold of your friend Jim by sending an email to encounters@fascinatingfae.com. You can also DM me and I will get back to you pretty reliably on Instagram and Facebook, which is also at Fascinating Fae. And you can also check out the socials there too, which generally speaking have like episode releases and a few other tidbits related to the shows, but I'm not a huge social media person, so I'm not there to spam you. If you want to check out some additional conversation with past guests and super fans of the show, Alex has started a group on Facebook called the Fascinating Fae Fan Family, which I think has getting close to like 50, 60 people there already. And you can join that group for more like, you know, you just can't get enough of Fascinating Fae and you want to keep going deeper into the chats. There's people there actually doing that after shows, which is really cool to me. So thanks, Alex, again for creating that. Thanks everybody who joins me on any and all of those socials. And a super big thanks on behalf of all of our human and non-human listeners tuning into Fascinating Fae tonight to our friend Carrie from London for coming on the show. Carrie, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you again for this orb and Peter Pan Shadow Person story tonight. It's really awesome.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been really lovely to talk to you and just to share the experience, which I've been so wishing to do. So thank you.
You know, in and of itself, a lot of my guests tell me that just telling me and knowing that it's now kind of like filed away on the record is a nice feeling. So appreciate you letting me do it. I do feel honored to collect all of these stories. That's the last thing I can say of value here tonight, and I'll give you, my guest, the last words.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
There's a lady knocking at my window. The rain is pouring down on her outside. She said, "Mister, won't you help me? For I know not where to go. You give me food and shelter for the night." She was a gypsy from Morocco, is what she told me. And she lost the caravan in the last town. And she was sleeping by the lake when they left her unawake. She didn't know which road that they'd gone down. She said, "I've been walking around all over town and I lost my clan. They went off to another land. Well, I don't have a clue what to do now." Hey! So I said, "Ooh, coming to jail one. Coming to jail, some gypsy reggae across the town." Singing, "Ooh, coming to jail one." And when they hear that rhythm, they'll come back around. Singing, they'll come back around. There's a lady knocking at my window, and the storm is raging down on her outside. She said, "Mister, let me in now, for I'm shaking in the cold. Will you bring me in to dry my bones by firelight?" She was a gypsy from Morocco, is what she told me. And she lost the people back when they left her in a dream. She didn't know which road that they gone down. She said, I've been walking around all over town and I lost my clan. They went off to another land. Well, I don't have a clue what to do now. Hey, so I said, oh, coming to jam one. We're gonna jam some gypsy reggae across the town. Oh, coming to jam one. And when they hear that rhythm, they'll come back around. I sing it, they'll come back around. Coming to jam